Hey there and welcome. We're just waiting for one more location to join us. We're actually broadcasting to 3 different locations. So gosh, I hope wherever you are, you do like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that kind of fun stuff. Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get started today. You know, the fall hiring season is in full swing right now. Once you pass the Labor Day weekend, you really have about 6 to 8 weeks of really prime hiring time. We really need to accomplish quite a bit before the beginning of the Thanksgiving holidays. If we're not significantly along our journey by that time, it becomes much more difficult to make things happen in later November and December. So now is the time to get moving. In terms of interviews, my gosh, there's a lot of interviews going on, but we need to understand what we need to do in that entire process. Let me just reconnect my little remote here. That will be much better with a little remote attached. So we need to think really closely here about what we need to do in an interview. I named this interview intervention on purpose. I think that's because most of us really need an intervention before the next time we walk into interview. Somebody has to stop us from what we've been doing. Hopefully today you're going to take a very new look. I know we're in a pandemic world, so even interviewing has changed quite a bit. But really there's a lot that you can do. And it comes down to how you utilize your career story, how you utilize technology that you have to deal with, and the ability to influence and the nuance in communications. Now, our personal branding is going to come into effect with an effective interview. So, you know, personal branding involves a lot of different things, but of course, all the things we say about ourselves right during interview. We're this product. And whether we're looking at the resume, the LinkedIn profile, our outreach messaging, or what we intend to say on the interview, we have to be thinking, well, what do we want them to think of our product? How should they love this product? What would get them to fall in love with this product? Just understand every single thing that can separate you out from others is part of your brand, and that comes right into the interview. Do make sure before you get to interview stage, you've taken your branding across all the other places that you need it, so you have a coherent, consistent story. And of course, if you need help, I know where there's someone that can really help you. Now, in terms of interview, the amount of success we're going to get comes from the preparation. Our interviews are a sales process. Do we get that part? We cannot get away from it. They're a sales process. It's our job to take back the control, not to submit. A lot of us would love to go in the room and just say, oh, I'll just see what happens. I'll just, see if they like me. No, it's our job to make the case. It's a sales meeting. It's our job to sell to them. It's our job to be persuasive. Really incredibly important that we don't allow it to be an interrogation, even if the style is an interrogation. In your brain, maybe say a little prayer of pity on them because, oh, this person really doesn't understand how to interview. I'm going to have to help them. Guess what? That is your job in the interview. Your job is to teach them how to select you, not to wait to see, oh, just be pretty little flower, be a pretty little flower. Let's see if they select me, and they're not going to select you. You have to stand up, not physically, but somewhere in the middle of your conversation where you've built enough trust and rapport, and you have to recommend yourself as the solution, as the very best individual. There cannot be wiggle room there, or I would not hire you. Now, problem in today's world is we have a lot of people that talk a good talk, but then they don't actually bring the skill. So they're very good at the soft skill piece, and yet they don't really bring the hard skill piece. If you have the right background, don't let somebody else take this next opportunity from you simply because, oh, it's not my style to have to do that. Oh, that's too aggressive. Well, don't let somebody else take your future away from yourself or your family. Now, in mistaken job search, we sit and think about the interview process and we go, oh, I want to be perfect. I want to be perfect. Cookie cutter perfect. But if you're cookie cutter perfect, you're interchangeable. And if I pick any one of you folks, guess what? I'm going to pay you less. I'm going to pay you less. Number 3, paying you less. You don't want less? Number 2, number 5. Doesn't matter. All interchangeable. That's the problem with only wanting to be perfect. You have to somehow paint yourself as cookie cutter perfect, interchangeable, correct and qualified for that job, but also still somehow exceptional, special, somehow stepping out of that line. You are different than just the rest. If they don't pick you, they don't get the extra pieces that other people may not bring to the table. Now, if you have not seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. About 7 or 8 years on a desk as a traditional headhunter. Well, let's say 7 or 8 years in all of recruiting, 3.5 years on the desk myself, doing 3 different disciplines, 2 of them national market, 1 local market. Then I spent about 3.5 years as the national trainer. This is a 100 office recruiting system, really teaching every single potential recruiter. They come into my 90-day program to teach them how hiring really works, which is not how people think it works. It just doesn't work that way. If it did, we wouldn't need lessons like today. Of course, I ended up being VP over all 100 offices before I left on my own. And now what I do for the last 10, 12 years is I work directly with clients of every background, every industry, helping them to reposition their value, both in the resume, the LinkedIn profile, how they present themselves verbally, so they open up a different future for themselves. That's who I am. That's who my background is. You should understand everybody's background that is teaching you, so you understand how to parse and value that information. Of course, there's my book. Check it over on my website. You can check it over on Amazon. A lot of great, really a great roadmap for how to run your job search, how to take on the challenges, how to renegotiate an offer. All that is really in there with really some magical language that will help you a lot. Hopefully it'll be a good addition for you. LinkedIn, if you have not changed your LinkedIn yet, or if it's not delivering what it needs to deliver for you yet, you can go right over to my Self-Recruiter website, about halfway down the page. You can see my whole LinkedIn lecture in a special format where you can see me large, the slides large, really whatever you'd like, and you can use it as a start and stop tutorial, essentially, as you work on your LinkedIn profile. Now, if you happen to be on my LinkedIn, you can click on the articles and you can get to things like supercharging your job search, or avoiding the biggest mistake in job search, or how your resume does not become resume roadkill. Self-Recruiter, it's really the umbrella across all of the lecture series. So today, it's about taking back control in the interview process. It also means the same as when we're networking, we have to keep one eye on that toughest competitor imaginable, because those are the people that we're going to have to outmaneuver. Those are the people that we're going to have to be seen as more valuable than to really get that job. Most of us, we go after the job, and if we're lucky, really lucky, we get the interview, we think, oh, good, okay, fantastic. And if it only worked that way. We get the interview, we don't get a call back. They said they'd be right after me. They loved me. I didn't hear anything. Because everybody's sitting at home doing probably what you were doing, hitting that darn button. Almost never does it really say apply. Always submit, all capital letters, until we're so submissive, it's like our Friday night. Waiting for that phone to ring. Oh, it's going to ring. It's going to ring. But when it does, it'll be a telemarketer, and leave us in a very unhappy place. Most interviews leave us in a very unhappy place. We tend to walk out thinking about how we're damaged, or what we said wrong, or all the things we wish were different, because we never really went in with a plan. Today, we're going to teach you how to develop an actual, real, in-depth plan. That is a little more unusual, unconventional, and unexpected. It is not what most job seekers do. But this is how you change the equation of diminishing returns, simply by changing the rules. I'm going to tell you something very, very soon about you and this product. Your job is to not be mediocre. Doesn't seem like a tough one, does it? But if we look around in the workforce, about half of the workforce out there appears to be mediocre, of only moderate quality, ordinary, average, middling, middle of the road. Oh, I love to read this one, but I'll let you read it. Go on and on and on and on. Okay. That's not very uplifting, by the way. And it's a little warm in my studio today, so I just cut the air. So let me just do a little dab here as I'm beginning to schwitz a little bit. So what's the flip side of this? If there is a upside, if I understand that the bulk of the people out there are mediocre, what do I have to be? Little tiny bit better than mediocre. Little tiny bit better than mediocre. I am better and ahead of the bulk of the workforce. So let's take that a little bit farther. If I simply put a little heart and soul into whatever I do, and I certainly have with every role I've ever had, everything changes. Everything is different. You're treated different. Suddenly you become the top 1, 2, 3%, simply from a little heart and soul into whatever it is that you do. So let's think about how we become the opposite of mediocre. Now, in terms of getting ready for interview, we tend to think about our story. Oh, tell me about yourself. Yeah, lots of things make us think about the story. But I want you to think in terms of developing a truthful, real story that's irresistible, engaging, That means you just don't do an information dump of everything that happened. You construct the story in a truthful but very certain way to drive your point. And we have to prepare that this interview could happen in person, not very likely these days, but it certainly could. Over the telephone, very, very likely. But most likely these days, it's probably a Zoom or a Meet or something along that, maybe even a FaceTime or a Skype. So we're going to have to be adaptable. And by the way, coming up at the end are some great video interview techniques. You will see exactly my studio setup here. So you can see what I'm presenting now, and then you can see what I'm working with to create it, and how that will dramatically shift your ability to elevate your brand in an interview. Now, here's the scary piece. I said that I was going to share a little secret. Don't answer questions. I know it seems counterintuitive. Well, it's an interview. But I don't care what they call it. It's a sales meeting. That's what it actually is. And a sales meeting, you do not speak without having a direction, without having a determination, without understanding what you want to convey, which all takes a plan. So in actuality, I am not really there on my interview to answer questions. Oh yeah, we're going to use the question and answer device to help facilitate conversation. But I am there to answer really any question I choose to answer. And if I don't like that question, I'm going to rephrase it and answer the question I wished I were asked, exactly like a very, very good politician. So really the whole concept of the discussion, the conversation, yes, they're going to try to figure out if my skills are right for the job and is my personality right for the job and everything else. But every bit of that conversation is about allowing me to position and sell myself with related career story of how I've delivered transformative value or whatever it is that you want to convey. That means you have to know yourself more than any other person, and not just the one that is in our head. We have to stand outside of ourselves and look at ourselves with skeptical eyes. Who am I? Why am I more valuable than the next 6 competitors that want that job? Because they really want that job. Now, the secret you may not like in interviewing is only 2 reasons. There they are. Oh, there we go. 2 reasons, only 2 reasons you ever get hired. Number 1 is chemistry above all other things. And by the way, yes, you have to be capable and qualified. I would never hire you because of that. Anybody I hire is going to be capable and qualified. What I'm hiring you is chemistry, number 1. Number 2 is confidence. Confidence in you. And that's before the credentialing, the background, who you've worked for, what was your work product, assuming you're capable and qualified for this role. Chemistry and confidence. So we have to do a lot of soft skill focus on that to create engagement, which is much, much closer to this style of engagement. So what's your story? Let's go back to that piece. It has to be interesting. It has to come to life. Yes, of course, we have to be capable and qualified, but that's not the story. I'm pretty sure their intention is not to speak with anybody, not to waste any time speaking to anyone that is not capable and qualified. As a recruiter, boy, I used to compete a lot against other recruiters, and I really loved it because I was never afraid of the competition. They go, oh, I'm already working with 3 or 4 recruiters. Well, then you're working with too many and the wrong ones. Because if those recruiters are not delivering you 1 or 2 or maybe 3 individuals that are all perfect for this role, the decision should be about chemistry or the recruiter did not do their job. It should never be about whether they're qualified. Or you need to get rid of those recruiters. Give me an interview spot. I'll show you what I'm going to share with you in terms of candidates. And boom, they can't resist. And then you have to deliver. Same thing here. Of course, you have to be capable and qualified to make sure that conveys. But the decision comes down to, why are you interesting? What makes you tick? What drives you? Which could have something to do with what you do professionally, could have nothing to do with what you do professionally, yet is still the piece. So let's think about this, and we're going to share a few more things as we move along. This is very likely quite a paradigm shift in a storytelling technique for you. And in live conversation, you're probably going to have to practice this over and over until you get to a place of feeling comfortable. Now, every bit of my career story, everything I've accomplished in my background, I need to package into little digestible stories, but then I have to filter them through this singular question that I'm always talking about, which is, why is it going to be the very best business decision they're going to make today if they choose to hire me? That little filter will help you create the communication mastery necessary to separate yourself. Sure, showcase your interchangeable, but also separate yourself as special, somehow unique. these soft skills that we're alluding to. This is our emotional intelligence quotient, EQ. This is all the things on this list here. But look at these last couple coming up here. Friendliness and optimism. Now, I'm very optimistic. Hopefully I'm friendly as well. Sagittarius, eternal optimist. Sun will come up tomorrow, even if it's a nuclear holocaust. And I sure hope it's not. But that kind of unstoppable optimism, no matter what. Now, as a job seeker, we better have a little pessimist up in our head, too. The pessimist in our head, to balance the optimist, is the one that's always looking for opportunity, always looking for what's in between the words. What do they really mean underneath? That's going to begin to change everything. So we have to take these soft skills and understand this is all about the influence, getting that other person we're speaking with to come to the conclusion that, well, if I add this person to the team, if this person was selected for the challenge, boy, that'd be a very different outcome. Now, as part of a process in getting ready for my interview, before I walk in the door, I want to warm up those folks. If I have a interview scheduled, say, for next Tuesday, 10 a.m., well, fantastic. It's only Tuesday now. You have a whole week to prepare. But even if it was Friday, right now, I could open all of those people up that I'm going to meet with on Friday. Brings up a question, doesn't it? Do you know who you're going to meet with? What? Yeah, they sent me a couple names. That's a little different than do you know who you're going to meet. So I've sent you a couple names. Do you know all the people you're going to meet with? Doesn't sound like it. I think you need to email them back again. I just emailed them this morning. Email them again. It is worth it. And Jack, Jim, or Jill, of course, looking forward to our interview session on Friday or Tuesday, whatever it is. In addition to yourself and Jack or Jim, can you let me know who else I'm likely, very important word, to meet with so I can fully prepare for the meeting? If you just tell them, they will provide the names. If you forget the word likely, they're probably going to go, I don't know. And then you didn't get very far. But if you include the word likely, they might go, I'm not really sure, but probably, Tessa and Jill will join in, and maybe 2 or 3 of your peers. Okay, so now I have 4 names and a reference to 2 or 3 peers, and I can look up on LinkedIn. And by the way, in the LinkedIn lecture, right on my website, I teach you how to reverse look up anything on LinkedIn. Last 5 minutes of the video, just scroll to it. So I can reverse search this department. I can look at who are my peers. I've discovered, oh my gosh, there's 6 peers. I might meet 2 or 3 of any of these 6, and I have to plan on how to build chemistry and win the vote from every single one. So of course, I'm going to open their profiles. Triggers a marketing event. I talk a lot about that in the LinkedIn lecture. Second thing is to ask them to connect with a gentle reminder that you're about to meet with them. Looking forward to meeting with you this Friday or Tuesday, whatever it might be, at 10 a.m. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Boom. By the way, many of them may not accept until after you speak with them. That's irrelevant. This is a fish hook, hooked on a fish or on a little worm, tossed out into the pond, and we have to be brave enough to wait until somebody snaps on that wiggling little worm in the water. The point is to get them to open your profile, but, I'm meeting with this guy on Friday or Tuesday. What's his background? Click. And now they're on your, hopefully, 3-dimensional sales brochure, which is really what your LinkedIn should be. In my view, polar opposite of the resume. Single sheet of paper to get them to jump out of their chair, not to tell your whole story, to get them to have to speak. I must speak with this person. Polar opposite of that is close the deal with all the information you provide that knocks out the competitor on your LinkedIn side, that makes you so much more compelling. It's a sales process. And both of these techniques, the open or the ask to connect, that's the 2 hooks, the 2 worms. And the goal is to get them to look at you, not the connection. The more times they look and read your background before you walk in the door, whether it's physical or virtual, it doesn't matter, the brand value they're feeling about you increases. So I guess, that message basically communicates you're about to meet me. I'm professionally appropriate. Gives them a little gentle stroke to the ego. Yeah, there's some language. You can take a little screenshot or shoot it up right there with your camera. Right, perfect. Now, hopefully that gets them over to your LinkedIn profile, which is the whole idea. Let's get them onto your sales brochure and develop that sales brochure so it is better than your competitors. And if you need help, I know a really good career coach that can help you there. Each of these are gentle little figurative nudges. None of them alone necessarily are going to change your future, but all of this attention at all the little detail is Very, very similar to aligning the dominoes. Have you ever seen those massive projects where some kids or adults or whatever are working on these gigantic domino things where they just click one and somehow the whole room goes down in sequence from a little planning? Simply better alignment of the dominoes so it's likely to hit the next one. Small changes change perception. Be persuasive. That's your job. Now let's get over to an actual interview plan. Nothing changes without a plan. If you were in business, if your job was to go sell your company's services or products or whatever it may be to the competitor of some sort or some other business, you wouldn't hesitate to walk in that door in the sales meeting and thrash your competitor that would be after that same business. You might go, well, you could go with XYZ or you could do this, but here's your problem with that. And you right for the jugular. But if you do that in your interview, they're going to think, oh, a shark, a barracuda, I can't let them in the room. They're going to come after me next. So you have to do it in a very gentle, different way. But it all requires a plan. So an interview plan, and we're going to drill down deep into each section here. We have to build our agenda. We have to do the needs analysis. We have to select and customize the work-life stories. And if there's no buy sign, we can't pretend we didn't hear it and hope for the best. We have to deal with it. We have to overcome those objections, and we have to close them and convince them that we are the very best selection. That is an effective job search plan. Now, we need to drill these down. So in building out the agenda, let me get a little sip. In building out this agenda, we have to think, well, who are we meeting? I need the vote from every single person. I need the vote if I'm physically in the office and I shake hands with the receptionist. Well, maybe not in the pandemic world, but any of that stuff, I say hello and everything else. Those are all people that interacted with me that maybe asked for comment later. So I hope you're not dismissive. Oh, would you like a coffee? No, I'm good. Can I take your coat? No, I'm fine. Really? That's how you're going to be the receptionist? The person that is usually in the roundtable meeting later on after they've met everyone? Oh, we've met everyone. Met 6 or 8 people. Let's come in and have a meeting. That person's always there. Resumes go across the table. They go, who would we like? Who would like? And then eventually, oh, what'd you think? Oh, a little strange in the waiting room. Red flag. You have a red flag. Your competitor doesn't. You're behind your competitor. I don't care if it's the receptionist or the person you meet in the hallway for 5 seconds or whoever may be listening in the background as you're video interviewing. You sometimes think, oh, I'm just talking to this one person. Really? You don't know there's 5 other monitors with all the other team watching at the same time just to evaluate your performance? You're always playing to a larger audience. Let's keep that part in mind. And no matter what the features of the platform they're using, there are very, very easy ways to record the entire session without it being aware during the session. So let's be aware that you're putting something out there that may last, may have to convince other team members. So building the agenda, who are we going to meet? How, with each one of them, am I going to build chemistry? Because we're all so different. We have to plan on what's their style. What can I find out about them? Did they ever give a talk and I can find it on YouTube so I get a sense of their energy? Wouldn't that be a game changer? I think it would be quite a game changer. What career stories are you going to talk about for each one of these people? Because you may need different career stories. Oh, this one needs to hear that. Oh, I know what that one needs to hear. Different stories for each audience. What could make them jump out of their chair? And what else do they need to hear? That's the basics of an agenda outline. But then the second thing we need to do is this scary sales term called a needs analysis. Ooh. You know what that means? Simply don't answer any questions at all. Oh, John, tell me about yourself. They already asked me. Oh, I'd love to. But I'm never going to answer that without doing the needs analysis. Before I answer, there we go. I'd love to make sure my answers are as focused and valuable to you as possible. Of course, I've done my research. Can't let them think you didn't prepare. I've done my research. I've read the job posting. I've looked throughout the industry. But what would be valuable to me is I'd really like to hear from your perspective, your opinion. Stroke their ego. What are the most important critical elements to get control of in, say, the first 30 to 60 days as I step into this role? Couple things happen there. First off, I set a time window of 30 to 60 days. Never say 90 days. That triggers something very different from a hiring perspective in the brain. 30 to 60 days triggers what's on fire right now, what train has just derailed, what's about to derail, what needs emergency action. That is rarely ever detailed out in the job posting. And yet if you ask a question like this, that seems innocuous, they'll answer it. Other thing I did was I projected myself into the role as I step into this role. There was no doubt there. I'm stepping into that role. And they're now thinking of me stepping into that role. That is part of your subliminal cell. There's a reason this job is open. It's not simply, oh, we have an open spot, a triangle, a circle, a square. That's not the reason. There's something that has to be solved. There's a problem. Why is this job open? Basically, there's only a few reasons jobs are open. Maybe person got fired. Ouch. Person got promoted. Or person left on their own. There's another one too, and that's expansion. Whoa, love expansion. But I tell you what, if they're expanding, you better not be from a place that had a big superstructure of support, because if they're expanding, you're probably going to have to wear all the hats and be comfortable and build it as you grow. That's a different type of person. And if you're up for that challenge, that could be great. You can also really make your mark and be seen in a brand new role. If it was promoted, what do you think the existence, the situation of their work product is? Oh, probably pretty good. They got promoted. I bet you they'd also like their legacy to continue to move forward with the right momentum. So that's why that would be important to understand, so you know how to support and push their agenda that they'd like to continue. Now, if the person left on their own, by the way, have you ever left a job on your own for a new job? I got a new job and I resigned this job. You ever done that? Let me ask you another question. When did you start looking for that new job? Or a different question, when did you actually stop doing your job? Because I bet you started looking for that job 4 or 5 months ago, and then several months in, you begin to disconnect, and then I bet you may have things about to derail or burst into flame or whatever in your work product, and your company may not even realize it, and yet you departed, and things may be about to fall over. So as a job seeker, I need to know if someone departed on their own, and I need to know some history and be careful. If someone got fired, they definitely have things they need changed. Now, you'd love to know what those are. It's like, is there a reason why you replaced the person? And usually, as a recruiter, the person on the other end would recoil because they can't really tell you. They go, oh, I don't think it's appropriate to talk about that. That was on purpose. I really knew they'd say that anyway. And then I give them permission to tell me anyway by rephrasing the question. Oh, I totally get it. Let me ask you a different question. What are you looking to have as a different result? Or what would you like to see changed? Or what would you like to have solved with this new person? And then they're going to proceed to tell you exactly why that person got fired. And then you'll know how to adjust your career stories. That's part of the needs analysis. Do the needs analysis before you answer too many questions, before you're selling to the wrong target for 30 minutes. And then suddenly they go, great background. Well, you're not right for this role. And here's why, because you sold to the wrong target. Select and customize those work-life stories. This is where you will literally sell to the right target or wrong target. Which story do I think they would want to hear? Which ones illustrate my skill or value or interest? So it's not telling the same stories to each person. Each person may need a different set of your stories that are all still true. You know what their title is? Decision maker. I don't care if there's multiple of them. They're decision makers. Their job is to object to you. Why is it that we get, they asked me about this. They challenged me about that. Oh my gosh. When someone says, well, hey, John, you don't have a background in this, do you? That sounds like a pretty strong challenge, doesn't it? I go, I don't. But I'm sure you're going to meet a lot of other individuals that may have that background from competitors. What I bring to the table is something very, very different. I also don't bring any industry baggage with me, and I bring such a passion that many people lose in their profession. So I'm very excited about this role. They would not waste oxygen on this conversation if they didn't think, maybe. I have to ask them this. Interviews are about how you put conversation together. They make the decision based on how you put your conversation together, based on the brain power they think they're getting. Objections, you know what they are. You haven't worked since last year. You haven't worked in this industry or field. Or you haven't worked in nonprofit. You haven't worked in commercial. Now, I do work with a lot of clients that have been in commercial at one point, and then later in their career, they realize, wow, that grind goes on forever. Maybe I might like a different life over on the nonprofit side. Of course, most people go, nonprofit. You know the problem with them. Now, when I was teaching live in-person audiences, I go, you know what the problem with nonprofit is? And someone goes, they don't pay. I'm like, you know who they don't pay? People that think they don't pay. They will pay you every single dime you are worth if you understand it. Their mantra is, oh, we're a nonprofit. The salaries are lower. Oh, we got another one. We got another one. Just go look at the top of the food chain in those organizations, which is usually public, and you'll probably lose your lunch over the pay rates up there. You deserve your pay rate as well. So let's overcome these objections. That technique, by the way, was an agree but disagree technique. I somehow agree to what they accused me of. You've never worked in this field. I haven't. Just like it's a gift from up above. Then I explain that that's something they're going to get from the other candidates that they're going to look at. What I bring to the table as an individual is something very, very different, something more valuable. You get where to go here. That's the overcoming the objections. But even with that, there may be no buy sign. They may even get to the end of our interview and say something like, wow, John, this has been a phenomenal discussion. You have such an interesting background. There's they go on and on for a few seconds. You're going, oh, sounds like it's a hit. And then they go, but we have a few more people to see, or a couple more weeks before we really have a decision. Anything like that after the niceties, you did not win. Winning requires these two things. Gosh, I'd love to get your references. We'd like to move toward offer. Ding, 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 ding. References and move toward offer. That is one pathway. Or the other is, I'd like to extend you an offer. Those are the only two buy signs. No matter how nice they start out, if it ends with but we'll have to get back to you, you didn't win. You didn't necessarily lose yet, but now is the time to act. If I didn't win, why would I stand up and leave this meeting, whether it's virtual or in person? Why would I leave? Why don't I challenge them to think of me as a winner? So I'm going to use closing questions, essentially. That's another scary sales term. Simply means closing. Well, this is what it means. It means asking for what you would like, plus asking for agreement to it. Now, some people do ask for what they like. They think that's closing. That's specifically not closing. Asking for agreement to it, that is closing. That's also where people say no. So people don't want to do it. So let's think about this. It will help them think about the entire hiring process as a two-dimensional race. They can see a graph. They will visualize where on this graph they think you are. And then they'll likely start to tell you what's wrong with you. I know that's a scary thing. Oh, you're going to tell me what's wrong with me? Yes. Wouldn't you like them to tell you what's wrong with you now before you leave this meeting so you can overcome the objection rather than leave them alone with those thoughts until they harden for the reason they don't hire you? So we'll take you through this part. It is not very difficult. Jack, what have you not heard or what have we not discussed? I go a little positive, negative there in style. One's a little hard and one's a little soft because you never know how people's brains are wired. It will help you in your decision process for this role. By the way, that's pretty good. That'll work pretty well. That causes them to think about what they have or haven't heard, what we need to discuss, where are my weaknesses, and instantly they're going to, boom, probably get something like, well, John, I think you have a great background, but I suspect you may be a little weak in area A, which is really critical for this role. Fantastic. Now I can overcome that. Now, that's not really strong enough for me, even though that's pretty good. I like it even stronger. Jack, what have you not heard or what have we not discussed that would help you in your selection of me as the very best individual for this position? I have to redo this slide. You try never to refer to yourself as a candidate, as an individual. You try to refer to the others as often as possible as candidates with a little da-da-da-da. Ugh, those people, like interchangeable cat hair in your mouth. Get rid of it. Candidates, individual. Very, very different. So let's go back and review just really quickly an actual interview plan, the same as a sales plan. You wouldn't expect to close many sales if you didn't have a plan before you walked in the door to sell. You've got to create an interview plan to sell. What's your agenda? What do your needs analysis properly. Find out where their real pain points are so you can choose the right customized work stories. If there's not a buy sign, you're going to have to really find out what's missing and overcome those objections and get them to see you as the very, very best. Let's take you through interview prep in a slightly different way. We're going to take you through the interview checklist. This hits on all the same kind of topics, but it does hit in a slightly different way. Now, as we look here, make sure to do your full research on the company, the job, company culture, everything that you can do. That means, yes, read the whole website, read the competitors, read everything going on with different people that have held the same job both in this company. You realize if your LinkedIn network were large enough, I mean, I have about 11,000 connections. I know, public speaker, not that difficult to get a lot of connections. But my 11,000 connections give me a pool, 3 levels out, of 21 million people. I can see every single competitor that I'm ever up against. In fact, in this kind of scenario, I can see everybody that's ever held this job before. And how do they talk about that job? If I was really thinking, I can go look at the direct competitors. Find the people doing the job of the direct competitor. Doesn't matter where. It's for research anywhere in the country. How do they talk about that job with the competitor? Doesn't even matter if the job is done differently with the competitor. This is about awareness of your industry. With that knowledge of the competitor, of the people that held this job before, your own belief in you being right for this job, that would transform your entire discussion simply from research. Make sure to do your research. Do the needs analysis early before you answer questions. Oh, John, tell me about yourself. Oh, I'd love to, but I have to do the needs analysis first, and you do it. Notice that it is without friction. Your job is to remove the friction in discussion, to make it light banter, to make it easy to digest, so that even in the most stressful projects you work on, it's a demonstration of how you interact with them. Body language, we have to watch that body language. It's very, very important. We got to control it and everything that we're going to do. So let's be careful of that. Let's not eyeball them. Let's not be so interested in this job that our eyes never move away. I'm like, oh my gosh, scary. Occasionally look away to think and then come back and talk with them, and look away to think and come back and talk with them. Dress like you are a success. Gosh, right before this, I was in some compression tights and a tank top and 5-finger shoes out doing cardio. And, if I came on camera that way, I don't think you'd listen to me. You have to look the part. So no matter what we like to dress like, and actually, who likes to dress up? It's a lot of work. It's hot on a hot day. No matter what we like to wear, you have to look the part. So we have to dress like $1 million. You cannot let your competitor outmaneuver you simply because they showed up looking sharper than you look. They need that 1 day or 2 days a year, or 3 days a year where they have the board or some important visitor or some important client. I was like, oh, you'll look fantastic in front of the client. Also, I'm giving you so much to think about, you're going to forget to listen. Your job in interview is not only to do all this mind mapping and strategy and planning for the interview, all live during conversation, but you also have to listen. That pessimist inside your brain, that's how I use the pessimist. They never show up here, by the way. How could you build chemistry and confidence if there was a pessimist here? But right inside here, that pessimist, their job is to disbelieve every single word that flows in through my ears. Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Ask them this. Pessimist is great with coming up with test questions. And I go, oh, Jack, Jim, Jill, that's so interesting. Talk about this area over here. And then suddenly I lure them into what I need them to speak about without really alerting them. Listening, because you're going to have to act upon a lot of things. You are there to sell yourself. Yes, you're there to evaluate whether you want to work there, but they can't see that. You ever go on a date and you're on a date and I'm on the date and I want to see if I want to date you. It's like, I'm sorry, I have no interest in you. Get away from me. It can't be something tentative. You have to be all in and see if it meshes. And if it meshes, you have a second or future dates. And if it doesn't, you're like, well, guess it wasn't quite the right mix, and you move on. But you can't be tentative up front. So sell yourself the entire time. That is why you are there. Would you like more money? I'll tell you what, I like more money too. But, there's nothing wrong with that. But here's how you get more money. My clients just can't believe it. But like, well, when do I? Don't talk about money. Well, what? Is there something not clear here? How you get the very best offer is to never have money come up ever until the offer stage. Now, that's very difficult. If you've been doing stuff like applying online, and I am not a believer of applying online. I understand some people do it, but that tends to go to the wrong people. Unless you'd like to work for the HR department, and there's nothing wrong with that, that goes to the HR department in almost every organization. That is not the decision maker. In fact, those folks who don't understand your background, they have an HR background, not your background, those folks are charged with ruling you out. Their mission in life is to rule you out without the knowledge that they really need to do it. So to me, I can't let someone like that determine my future. I have to get right to the decision maker where I can whisper right into their ears, whether it's verbal in the phone on a voicemail or right into their email directly. Watch the LinkedIn lecture. I talk a lot more about direct outreach. In terms of getting the best offer, that means if I'm doing those online applications where they're trying to trap me about, expected desired future salary or that kind of stuff, I put a 1 or a 0 because they're not going to pay me 0. They're not going to pay me $1. If they force me to pick salary ranges, my gosh, we have to learn how to operate our computer. I don't care which brand of computer you have or any of that kind of stuff. But you know what? One of these 3 keys to the left of your space bar, depending on which machine you're on, will let you select, if you hold it down, it will let you select multiple ranges. I may give them from 40,000 to 140,000. Here's your complete non-answer that can never be used against me because it's ridiculous. The longer you can wait before they think of you and think of a number next to it, later in the process, you have all this time to show your value. When they eventually think of that number, and it'll be a different number, and that's a far better starting point. That's how you get the very best money. Now, there's also the whole negotiation piece, which will not be in today's lecture. It is in some of the older videos, but I'm going to do a whole separate negotiation video coming up on that, so keep a lookout for it. Time to get it right. Just a couple things to think about. If we're going anywhere physically in person, be sure to get in the area, not in the office or lobby, but get in the area 30 minutes in advance. Get to a coffee shop, get to a park bench, whatever is right for you. Go over your notes, collect your thoughts. Last 10, 15 minutes, close the notebook, be centered. Trust that all the homework preparation that you've done will be there for you and available for you in the moment of the interview. And then time it so you can get through the building security, get to the floor security, arrive basically in their office lobby 5 to 15 minutes prior to your scheduled time. So if you've got an 11 o'clock interview and you show up at 10:35, that is not okay. 25 minutes is too long to leave you sitting there. And person at the desk is going, oh, John, your 11 o'clock is here. My day is already out of control. I cannot leave you sitting out there 25 minutes. Now I have to interrupt my day already out of control, put on a nice face, come out there and go, oh, can't wait to see. Actually, probably just at 11, it might be just 1 or 2 minutes afterward. I'm looking forward to our conversation. And as I walk away, I'm like, oh, you're already ruining my day. Because you didn't bother to think. You thought, oh, eagerness. No, correct timeliness is what you really want. The other timing issue to think about is accepting the offer. If you are not going to negotiate, you need to accept the offer when they present it. That is the only way to get the win and the momentum forever. But I don't know what offer they're going to give me. Who cares? I think you're smart enough right now. You could put down 3 different figures. Stinkiest, most insulting offer that they might ever give me. What's the offer at a level that is in a financial range I would need? Maybe not everything I desire, but that one would be hard to walk away from. And what's the pie in the sky? Well, not too much pie in the sky, but what if I get my dream? What's my dream number? Okay, you have 3 numbers right now. Imagine they present you an offer at those 3 numbers. What's your reaction to each one of them? There is a point to where you'll want to negotiate. Just keep in mind, anytime that you negotiate, you could lose the offer that's on the table. If someone gets emotionally injured or feels insulted, poof, the offer goes away. So it's very careful. I recommend you never negotiate unless you're willing to risk losing the offer. Very important things to consider on timing. Now, next step, opportunity. The whole time is, oh my gosh, you're there to evaluate, but yes, opportunity, opportunity, opportunity the whole time. And at the very end, make sure you've left the impression of asking for the job. Doesn't mean, oh, I want this job, but it means as simple as, oh my gosh, Jack, Jim, Jill, this is so exciting. What's our next step? Even if you already know the next step is to go meet Sally in the next 30. Well, John, we're going to have you meet Sally next. I thought we told you that. That's okay. They all need to go, oh. That's the people they remember when they do the roundtable discussion. Who was excited, who was looking for the next step, who is looking for this job, not just a job. Now, your real homework doesn't happen here. Your real homework is preparing the answers to the questions that you might be asked. Which stories do I want to talk about, depending on what questions? We could write down every single question they could ever give you, positive and negative, and I think you really know what those are. Take your top 10 or 20 of them. You have the questions for interview right there. Besides the ones that are right for your profession, what would you ask if you were the hiring manager having to evaluate you? Besides that, add 3 self-recruiter questions that are going to help you. And that is, tell me why I should hire you over all others that I see. This is kind of like throwing down the gauntlet. Now, pretty sure they're not very likely to ask you this way, But my gosh, I have to make sure that elements of this answer are mixed into my answers. Next one is tell me why my work life will get easier or better by hiring you. Again, not very likely to ask it this way, but I need to convey to them how their work life will get easier and better, because if it will, they'll hire you really, really quickly. And of course, the last one you already know, which is why is it going to be the best business decision I'll make today if I choose to hire you? Again, they may ask you that one, but not likely. Have to make sure elements of that are mixed into all my answers. And of course, practice makes perfect. So get with a coach or get with a friend and practice till we are blue in the face. It is about learning the concepts of the answer so you can give it organically off the cuff as if it just occurred to you. By the way, great with role play. So if you need a good coach to help you, I think you know where to find me. Following up, that's another piece we have to do with the interview. Now, if you'd like to be a standout, why don't you simply send a thank you note? Completely shocking to me that such a tiny, tiny percentage of people actually send thank you notes. Now, when I'm teaching a live audience where I can see them, oh, it's ridiculous the number of people that claim to send thank you notes. What industry? Where is this? I've experienced a lot of it, and those thank you notes just are rarely coming except from just a very few people. If you'd like to stand out, my gosh, send a thank you note. But please don't make the mistake of ever in our lives from this point forward, ever thanking someone again for their time. You must be equal to every single person that you speak with. I will never speak up to anyone, certainly never will speak down to anyone. I don't care if that's the CEO. I don't care if that's the person that cleans the CEO's office. It's the same interaction level. So my gosh, I'm going to do a correct follow-up. I'm going to reach back out to them. I'm going to control their conclusions. If I'm going to do all that, I have to do a little bit of self-diagnosis. Afterward, I'm going to do a debrief, which means I'm not going to go home if I'm doing this in person. I'm going to walk out to the nearest coffee shop, park bench, whatever I like. And I'm really going to do an information dump right down into my notebook. Every single tangential thought I'm having, no matter how fleeting. Oh, there's a reason you're having it now. If you don't capture it, it'll be gone. And that means we have to cover everything. Debriefing is what you think interviews really are. Interrogation, grilling, examining, probing. Yes, let's do it. Interrogate yourself. And that means the good, the bad, the ugly. What went well? What didn't go well? Where did I stick my foot? Oh my gosh. What did I forget to talk about? What did I avoid? Did I talk about the wrong things? Save the most important question to last. Most important question is a little demoralizing. That's why we save it to last. The goal is not to demoralize ourselves. The goal is to improve ourselves. So if they don't move forward with me, or if they don't hire me, what's the reason going to be? And this is not something you think about. This is like a funny bone gut reaction. You hit the nerve and suddenly it just goes. After you do this, after a few interviews, you will train your gut instinct to be right almost all the time. Why do I think they won't hire me? Oh, I'm weak in area A. Well, let's explore that. Is area A important to this job? Yeah, it is. So it's important to the job, but you didn't talk about it during the interview? Well, no, I've only worked on a couple projects. And I was a little worried to talk about it. They might ask me more depth. They might realize how little experience I had, so I avoided it. So you avoid it, the most important thing, but now you realize you stabbed yourself in the foot. Okay, well, we have to deal with it. We can't leave them with that impression. So after your thank you note, which I hope is in thanking them for their insights, for their information they shared, all that kind of stuff, not time. Then you segue over with a paragraph and go, oh my gosh, we didn't have a lot of opportunities to talk about area A, where I've worked on projects such as this and that. Notice I didn't have to tell them that's the only 2 projects. They think there's many more. These are representative, but no, I'm being literally truthful. I just didn't confess that they were the only 2 projects. Yes, I can decide what to leave out. It's still truthful. Oh, if you'd like to discuss that area, don't hesitate to reach out at any time. This technique saved one of my promotions years ago, decades ago, actually, before I was ever a recruiter, before I had all this training. I saw a great opportunity. I was in a corporation I was working for. My department, out of 121 retail locations, I had the #1 department in the entire country inside of the #4 store in the country. Really a big, big monster. And so our general manager went up to be country manager of Canada. And you know what John thought? I said, oh, I should rise to the throne. I mean, have you seen my P&L? It's amazing, number one in the country. And so the danger here is I could also see my competitors. It was that type of organization where the smaller locations, which are really somewhat insignificant relative to the big monsters, they all saw that going, oh, I want the big one. It's like, yes, but you're not really qualified to run the big one. I brought a lot of different things to the table before I ever joined that company. I joined the company for other reasons. And my gosh, they were surprised to have my kind of background. And there was a time frame I was getting promoted every 4 to 5 months. I'm like, could you slow down? I'm having chest pains trying to keep up with the workload. I wasn't fooling these people. They were excited by how much I could handle as I put more and more on my plate. So they would just keep handing out more responsibility. So I went to the interview. This is before any recruiting training. And I did a pretty good job because I've always been good in conversation. And of course, problem is there's 2 decision makers. My regional manager who knows my P&L and knows me, fantastic. And the other region's regional manager, who actually I'd worked for a few weeks at the very early part of my career in that company before I changed divisions I was in. But you know what? That other person really just wanted some young minions to run around and drink with after work. And you know what? I was a little older than those other folks, and that's not why I was there. That's not my thing. And so I don't think he could quite get me. I don't quite get John. Well, do you get my P&L? It's amazing. It's number one in the country. Maybe that's what we should be looking at here. So I thought I did pretty well. I go back to my location. I call my spy. Really good to have a spy in headquarters. I think it went pretty well. No, I don't think so. They're in there arguing about you right now, something about your vision for the store. Like, oh, I forgot to communicate my vision for the store. Pretty basic and yet amazing. And so I said, gosh, thank you for the great discussion, the insights you shared, everything else. And by the way, we didn't get a lot of opportunity to talk about my vision for the store. Well, if you'd like to discuss that, reach out on my cell phone at any time. Click send an emergency bullet point out my answers. They're going to call me any second. Never called me. Got the job. Oh, look, here's a vision. Well, it doesn't matter. Can't change anything anyway. Boom, solve the problem. Solve the problem before the reasons harden into why they do not choose you. Wow, I'm very excited by what we've discussed and how I contribute to the team. What's the next step? That's asking for the job. Your interviews, like we started out at the beginning, are a sales process. And we have to think about these interviews being the sales process. This is where you take back control in the entire process. It's our job to position and sell ourselves. That's what we have to do. We have to make that case. We have to teach them how to select us. We have to avoid letting it feel or be like an interrogation. Oh, I don't even sense you're interrogating me. Because even if they're interrogating me, I'm answering back conversationally in a way that will draw them into the conversation and create engagement. All things being equal, it's all about chemistry if we have the right background. So building chemistry, in a few minutes on this one here as we come toward the close of today, building chemistry, it means it has to be about them. I know you're there to sell yourself, but you have to shift the angle of how you present the story because it's always about what you could do for them, not what you can do. That's about you, or what you could do for them, how you could change their future. They have to see that it's about them rather than me, me, me. You ever been on one of those dates with Mr. Me? Me, 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 me. You think there's a second date with Mr. Me? No, unless we're going to the Four Seasons, it's not going to happen. We get the idea here. We have to understand it's about them. That means finding a way to be real and genuine. Now, in life, in reality, as you've seen in many of these videos, as I've said, I'm actually shy and introverted, which usually makes people burst out laughing because they've really never seen it. But just because I'm very, very good at managing it and hiding it does not mean it's not a reality. Does this mean I'm not real and genuine right now? No, I am. This is part of me too. We're all multifaceted people. You have to understand this aspect. That will help you step out of your comfort zone in certain areas where you have to push the envelope a little bit. Now, video interviewing techniques. I promised you all these things. Let's break it on down here. We're going to likely video interview these days. If the last 15, 16, 17, 18 months hasn't gotten us ready to video interview, probably haven't been doing what we should have done. We have to be very familiar with these platforms. We have to be comfortable with Zoom. We got to be comfortable with Meet or whatever else the next one might be. We have to understand that all the different ways that one of our interviews could happen, that's all a way to get to the end. But most likely it's still going to be video conference, at least for some of them these days. Now in the COVID-19 era, The biggest concern is, even though we're dying to get back to work, I hate that phrase because I think they're waiting for us to die to get back to work. I prefer not to get back to work. We can do it remotely this way, at least till it's safe. Okay. So they want to know chemistry and confidence are going to win the race, and also can you work remotely? We're going to come back to that one. Let me just show you a few screenshots. These are Zoom shots I pulled off Pinterest. Someone had been collecting some Zoom shots. And I want to just talk about the effect on your brand of how you present yourself before I disclose all the setup you're looking at here. So in this one, remembering chemistry and confidence, do I see it? I don't see chemistry. I don't see confidence. I don't know if this person understands they're on an interview. I don't think they're interviewing for a baseball team or to work on the staff. So, there's no power here. It does not win. Don't even think they understand it's a job interview. So that one has to go by the wayside. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it here? Do we see it? I'm not sure if I see anything here. Well, I do see something. I see the sky. I see the things behind. I see you hobble down like an insignificant little rodent at the bottom. Sorry, I refer to this person like a rodent, but they're kind of like that little thing like scurrying around in the corner. There's no chemistry. There's no confidence here, even though they may have tried to be friendly. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? I don't really feel it. Oh, I'm sure they feel they're confident. I don't know if they feel they convey chemistry, but there's no chemistry here. What I don't need to see is your ceiling, and I certainly don't need to see up your nose. We're 15, 16, 17, 18 months into this thing. I think we would have learned by now the difference between when we're looking up the nose to people and when we're looking in the camera to people. The trap with doing video interviewing is we tend to want to look at the computer screen. The computer screen is not the person. Look at the person in the eyes, which is the camera. We have to adjust that. Also, get the height correct so we're not looking at it the wrong way. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we feel it? Chemistry, I don't feel it. I think there's some confidence here. So I'm going to give the confidence vote right before I take it away because I suspect there's actually no confidence here. Couple things undermine confidence despite the bright, engaging presentation. Part of it is selection of the wrong image. Well, that's a beautiful image behind. It is a beautiful image behind. But it's so distracting, I keep looking at that image behind you and not you. That does not add focus to you. That draws the focus away from you. Second thing that undermines confidence is this big, giant gaming boom microphone and headphone setup. Oh, I get you might like to listen to it that way, but I don't want to see you that way. And this is not about you being comfortable. By the way, you're about to see what I'm staring at, which is 3 very, very large light boxes. And I have hazel eyes, which are a little sensitive to light. When I step into this scenario for the first couple moments, it's like being stabbed in the eyes. But then I think of the goal that I'm after, and none of it matters. And my eyes relax, and I open up, and you learn to deal with it. Win the day by the right presentation. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I'll give them the chemistry vote, and I'll give them the confidence vote. But, you can't allow yourself to be upstaged. This person originally set up an interesting dynamic with the square of the room behind them, but then they allowed this gigantic picture to frame their head partly, and we keep looking, trying to identify what the picture is, not looking at you. You're being upstaged by your background. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we feel it? You know what? I do feel it. I feel the chemistry. I feel the confidence. There's a good engagement. But my gosh, we have the same problem here. Attention to detail. We're upstaged. Well, I get how we thought this curved wall with all the pictures is interesting, but you know what that leads to? That leads me to just go, what's in that picture? What's in that picture? And I'm not paying attention to you while you're being upstaged. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? I do feel the chemistry. I do feel the confidence. We're going to give them both votes here. But I'm not sure Princess Leia giant headphones on the ears, the ear bun look is not what I'm looking for. Oh, I know, maybe comfortable for you. I like to wear my buds. Good for you. Let's make sure they're not visible or they're the kind that just get in the ear and suddenly we're not Princess Leia. Never did really like that bun style. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we feel it? Do we feel it? You know what? I feel it. I feel it. I'll give this person those votes. Let's talk about a couple other things. Don't wear medium-sized headphones either. Thank gosh they're not the Princess Leia ones, but I don't need to see it wearing the little wire headphones either. Let's deal with the sound as it is, or if you need to, tiny little earbuds that disappear into your ears so it's not a distraction. You are the story, not your comfort. Let me also comment on how this person picked their photo for the backdrop. Yes, that is certainly just a staged photo off of some site, but look at what they did. They picked something that added depth. My gosh, did you notice my studio gives me a lot of depth here? I love to move around the studio. It's so nice. Plus, studios, they tend to, if you've ever been in one, they tend to pre-chill them down. I wish I'd pre-chilled my studio down, or I wish I had an air conditioner that was capable of pre-chilling the studio down. So this person did a nice job of having something that gives depth, has interest, but keeps the focus on them. Notice they are the lightest thing on the frame. Our eyes tend to go to the lightest spot. Very, very important. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I'll give them the chemistry. I'll give them the confidence. And clearly, if all things are being equal, this is the winner. Yes, this still has some problems. They're still looking down in the camera. A little bit of up volume that we don't like. But look how they framed it with the 3 notches on the left, a little bit of a picture on the right, just enough to keep the focus on them, enough interest, but not too much distraction. What are you going to use for your background? Let's think about that. Let's think about how you're going to elevate your brand. Now, in terms of the interview, it's going to be video likely. That means Zoom or Meet or one of these other platforms. You're going to have to get comfortable with each one. And even if I'm not comfortable, I'm never going to mention that I'm not comfortable during the interview. I'm going to go, oh, let me just find that over here. And I just do it. Now, let's talk about a couple setups I'm showing you. This is my other half's work setup. They are set up with one of our fold-out tables right against the front windows, actually in the other end of where I'm talking right now. And I can't do that. I already told you I had hazel eyes. So if I stare at those bright open windows, my brain is going to explode. And yet on camera, and they don't have the eye issues I do, oh, they look fantastic, incredibly lit, and very, very important. Have to have great light if we're going to look great. So very, very important how we accomplish that. Now, there may be times where I can't look into that giant, abyss of the sky, and I have to put the blinds down. Well, whether you have that setup or an internal setup that's a little darker, maybe you need one of these giant light rings. These light rings, by the way, have some buttons on them so you can change the color tone to balance out whatever your camera's doing. Some cameras get the color just right. Some of them, I'm looking blue, I'm looking red. You're going to adjust the color tone until you look healthy, alive, vibrant. So you likely need the right light. You probably also need to elevate the computer to get the camera up to the right level. So we're not looking down all the time, which is not really exciting. Very, very important. If we're going to sound great, we very likely also need a condenser mic. Yeah, the one that's in your system probably is okay. Probably okay. Okay. You want to be okay, or you want to win that thing? This is what I'm speaking to you on. It's a blue snowball, by the way. There's lots of condenser mics out there that are pretty good. This is fairly inexpensive, and it produces great sound. So, yeah. Other secret, of course, is stand up. Don't sit down. I'm standing right now. Actually, all my career as a trainer, even though much of it, some of it was in person in front of people when we had them come into the headquarters, but a lot of it was 3, 4, 5 different groups of conferences calls all day long. Groups of 5 and 10 and 2 and one-on-one, and all of it. And in those days, it was not video conference, all of it done standing up. In fact, I was in a little bit of a glass room. Sometimes one or two of my bosses would walk by going, oh, look at John there. He's like going right at it in the room. It's like, does he know they can't see him? I'm like, I'm not standing up because they can see me. I'm standing up because it releases my diaphragm, my energy. My presence can be completely different. You need to do the same thing for your interviews. If you want to win it, stand up. That means you also have to learn how to control yourself. Most people cannot stand still. You might go, well, John, you seem to be moving around a lot. Well, a little bit. But I think what you're going to understand very quickly is I'm standing in about a 1.5 square foot space. My feet essentially never move out of the 1.5 square foot space, and my body moves in about a 2 foot square space. That takes a lot of control. And most people get a little antsy and then they start wiggling way too much. You have to control and feel yourself connected to the ground. That'll help you as well. Now, here's my actual setup. I am standing right behind my ironing board. Yes, the same ironing board I ironed this shirt on, then comes in here into the main bedroom, goes up against the bed. There are 3 gigantic light boxes. We are going to flip this visual around so you see those aside. Notice that I have my computer even with the ironing board significantly lifted up into the air, not to get the computer at the correct level, but to get the camera at the correct level so I can stare right into it. Very, very, very important. You see the mic, you see everything, all very important things to get it right. Here is the reverse shot. So yes, I am literally standing in front of this wall right here, this nice big green screen, which means that is my back against the wall. That's as far as I can go. That's about as far as I can go before I'm too close to the camera. So you realize there's very little movement and I can only really move here. So if you keep your feet planted, you allow the rest to do the moving. Actually pretty simple. You notice if you want to look phenomenal, you're going to have light all around you. And it is a little blinding, but I want to win. Also going to have a place for notes or remote control if you have to set it down, or a coffee if you need it, or someplace to put a box of tissue in case you need a tissue. And you realize thinking through all of these steps so they're seamlessly at your command, that is how you're going to really win the day. So don't forget the first thing we started with. Don't look at the screen, no matter how much we might like to. Look up at that camera, learn to love those bright lights, and let's really take control of our next interview. Thank you guys for joining in. I really do appreciate it. We do have to think of things differently in a pandemic world, and we're going to have to think about how we can convey that we can certainly work remotely. So whatever is going on with you, or whatever is going on with the different challenges that you are facing in your career, whether it's your resume or your LinkedIn profile, how it presents your brand, or maybe you're structuring and saying the wrong things in an interview, or maybe even your job search process itself is not really the best. Lots of advice over my website that'll help you, my LinkedIn lecture, and of course, under the services tab, you have all my packages. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, all those kinds of things. And please do send to your friends, probably not your competitors. But thank you guys for joining in today, and have a great next interview. Take care.